Hello, everyone. It's Monday, August the 15th. We have had 3 additional deaths. Sometimes they don't get reported exactly, really quickly over the weekend, but, I offer up again, please, keep these people in your prayers. But we lost a 63-year-old male from Putnam County. It was the 7,204th death. The 7,205th death is a 79-year-old female from Cabell County. And the 7,206th death is a 62-year-old male from Morgan County. We have 2,891 active cases right now in West Virginia. From a standpoint of the last 24 hours, we had 1,896 new positive cases that were reported. Our daily positivity rate's way up because we probably didn't test a lot. Cumulative rate is at 8.40 now. Recovered cases are 559,225. We have 333 Great West Virginians that are hospitalized, 46 in the ICU units and 13 on ventilators. We do have some, green counties, a lot of yellow counties, and 1 county that's in the gold, and that's Hardy. From the standpoint of our booster shots, I encourage, absolutely get that booster shot. It's, the FDA has approved and is encouraging booster doses for all Americans over the age of 5. Now, especially if you're 50 and above, you've got to get this booster shot. I know some really close friends that just over the weekend ended up with COVID. The first question that I asked them was, have you had your booster shot? Because they were having a tough go of it. They said, well, not really, not yet. When am I supposed to take that, or how long's it been? I got my last vaccine in October. Well, it's too late. It's too late. I mean, they are really sick. And really and truly, they should have had their booster shot months and months ago. People don't realize, or at least I don't think they do quite yet, but if you've not had your booster shot and you're 4 to 6 months out from when last time you had your vaccine, your level of immunity is almost 0. It is really low, and you are very exposed. 2 really close friends of mine, have COVID right now. And it's just hard for me to imagine, as many times as I've come and as many times as we've talked and everything, that they wouldn't have their booster shot. But they didn't, neither one. And they got a real problem right now. So please take heed to that and get your booster shots. From the standpoint of our numbers, again, a little teeny better. Over 65 with at least 1 shot, 91.7%. It's a little better, but we can do a lot better. Vaccine calculator, will remind you when to get your booster and everything. Go on our website, get registered on our website, and it'll remind you. From the standpoint of all the stuff about COVID and everything, it's on our website. From the standpoint of our long-term care facilities, we have 110 outbreaks there. We have none in our church community that we know of. At corrections, we have 67 inmates and 50 staff cases that we have right now. I remind you again about the homeowners assistance program. It's still available to you and everything. Please take time. If you've got, if you're behind on your rent or whatever it may be, if you'll call us and everything, we may very well be able to get you qualified and may be able to really help out. From the standpoint of past due mortgage payments, this program goes up to $15,000. As far as past due utilities, it goes up to $2,500. Past due insurances or property tax payments and everything, or other housing costs, it could go up to $5,000. Please just call us and see if we can get you qualified. From a standpoint of giving blood, super important. You really need to consider that. But I want you to have a discussion with your physician and them sign off and say, we're ready to go and everything. And then, if that be the case, just give it some consideration. I think Dr. Amjad is on with us, and she'll tell you more about this, but this is more good stuff that we've got going on. The DHHR has purchased 16 mobile vans to provide COVID testing and vaccines to support communities around our state. The vans will be used at West Virginia's K through 12 public and private school community events and other locations where they're needed. These vans are capable of delivering other health services as we move forward in the future. And Dr. Amjad, I'm sure, will tell you more about that in just a little bit. Also, from the standpoint of, again, more flooding, a little bit more high water. It's been really wet here recently, has it not? And we've gotten our share and then some other folks' share of rain. But the National Weather Service reported 4 to 6 inches of rain that fell in Kanawha, Putnam, and Fayette counties, overnight. Several homes and roads are flooded and everything. Early reports indicate 20 people have been rescued from their homes. Volunteer firefighters have evacuated almost 20 residents from their homes using boats and, as the water came up and everything. The worst of the water in Kanawha County was in the eastern end of the county on Kelly's Creek, Hughes Creek, and Campbell's Creek, Smithers, and Cannleton Holler. But that's for what we know. But I'll promise you the Red Cross and our DOT and Emergency Management Services and all those folks are on it and they're working it. And I'll be calling a state of emergency for the affected counties later today. But thank you so much. That's all I've got right now.
All right, thank you, Governor. Next to Dr. Clay Marsh, our coronavirus czar.
Well, good morning. As the governor has said, we are seeing nationally the beginning of the fall in cases of COVID-19 from the BA.5 variant. As we've mentioned before, in West Virginia, we always are a little bit behind the rest of the country. And so as we look at the Walgreens COVID positivity index, we find that their index in all Walgreens stores around the country last week was 37%. West Virginia was still 42%. So we still are hanging up there, but we can anticipate over the next week or a bit more to see our numbers start to decline. Now, that doesn't mean that it's still not important for people to protect themselves, as the governor has said. We now know of 5 separate studies that demonstrate that getting the 4th shot, the second booster for those people over 60 years old internationally and over 50 years old in our country is beneficial in reducing mortality, reducing deaths, and also reducing hospitalizations. With that said, the CDC has amended their guidance and basically changed it a bit to say that if people have been exposed to somebody with COVID and don't have any symptoms, if the person exposed has no symptoms, then they should wear a high quality mask for 10 days and test themselves at least at day 5 with a rapid test, but don't have to isolate even if they don't have up-to-date vaccination status. And also suggests that in schools, for instance, children who may be exposed to somebody who has COVID-19 but doesn't have any, who do not have symptoms, do not have to test to stay in school. Now, if people get symptoms or if they test positive, that really changes things. And if you've been exposed to somebody and have symptoms, you should still isolate for at least 5 days and test yourself. Or if you test positive, then you should isolate for 5 days. And if you have no symptoms for 24 hours at the end of that 5 days, then you can go out again with another 5 days with a high quality face mask. Those guidelines are on the CDC website and are available in the media as well. Now, from the standpoint of updates and new insights on COVID, there's been a couple of studies that have come out that I think are worthy to share. Number one is there's a second brain study that was done in patients who had COVID using MRI scans of their brain. And what they found, just like the first study from the United Kingdom found in the UK Biobank study, the people that had COVID with repeat MRIs did have oftentimes subtle changes to their brain. And in this study, as did the first study, they found that the people that had the changes to the brain also often had subtle cognitive deficits, brain fog, if you will. And the second study, they looked and found that these people had changes to a critical cell type in the brain called astrocytes. And these cells are important in regulating blood flow to the brain and also in helping repair injury to the brain. So I think we're coming closer to finding out some of the mechanisms of perhaps people that have brain fog after COVID. And what's important about these studies is these studies were pre-Omicron, so this is more in the Delta time, but also suggests that as perhaps the taste of or the sense of smell and taste goes away, that may be the entryway to the virus into the brain, and there may be manifestations in people who suffer from long COVID. And speaking of long COVID, a study from the Netherlands came out and suggested that 1 in 8 people who had COVID, even mild COVID, reported symptoms of long COVID. And they did not, in that study, go into brain fog or other neurologic problems, but they found that the most common symptoms in those people were chest pain, shortness of breath, and fatigue. And they also in this study suggested that they felt that long COVID was less common in children than in adults. And as we've talked about in previous press briefs, in the Omicron, the BA.5 surge of COVID-19, it looks like long COVID may be a little bit less common. But the key is that people up to date with their vaccines are the most highly protected against long COVID, as well as protected from severe manifestations of COVID, including hospitalizations and death. Thank you.
All right, thank you, Dr. Marsh. Next to retired Major General Jim Hoyer, the director of our Joint Interagency Task Force.
Good morning. As the governor pointed out, 333 hospitalizations. That is down from Friday, 355, but we are still seeing a steady influx of between 45 and 60 people on a regular daily basis going in for COVID. So we will continue to watch those numbers. The potential still exists. If you remember, we tend to be a couple of weeks behind in hospitalizations from when we hit peak numbers. So we're still anticipating some potential growth, particularly up to the Labor Day holiday and after the Labor Day holiday in preparation for those potentials. As we talked about earlier, the governor's directed us to do a tabletop exercise that is scheduled for 22 August. So we'll do some planning and preparation with various partners in the interagency task force for that. As the governor pointed out, boosters are really important. We continue to make those available across the state of West Virginia. In addition to that, important with back to school, that parents still give strong consideration to getting vaccinations for their children to protect their children going forward as we go back to school. Another interesting point, continue to watch numbers, and over the weekend, 94 people over the age of 18 got their first dose. So West Virginians are still even out there getting a first dose. And for those who have the preference for other than the mRNA vaccine, the Novavax vaccine, a 2-shot series, is available in West Virginia for those who would prefer that. We appreciate all the work of all the partners across the interagency task force, and I know the governor has great respect and appreciation, as do I, Dr. Marsh, Dr. Amjad, for all those people still out there on the front line, particularly those still working these individuals coming into the hospitals. Thank you.
Thank you, sir. Next to Dr. Ayn Amjad, our State Health Officer.
Good morning. As the governor mentioned, we did purchase 16 vans. They're mobile vans through a CDC grant. These vans are available for West Virginia's K through 12 public and private schools or community events. I would like to thank Tim Pretty and his team at the Center for Threat Preparedness for helping procure these and have them sent out. We have sent out several to health departments already. And if anyone is interested, they could please call their local health department. If schools are also interested, DHHR is providing free antigen testing kits, and you can also call on the Center for Threat Preparedness for that as well. We are also providing school supplies for sanitary, alcohol wipes and things like that if schools need them too. Thank you.
Thank you, Doctor. We'll now go to questions from members of the media. The first today from Stephen Adams with Ogden Newspapers.
Yeah, Steve Adams of Ogden Newspapers here. We're more than 2 weeks out from when the special session for your tax plan and for updating abortion laws went into hiatus. We're still waiting on the session to resume, subject to the calls of House Speaker Roger Hanshaw and Senate President Craig Blair. I wanted to see if you've had any conversations with anyone in the legislature over the last 2 weeks, more recently in the last, say 7 days. Where do we stand? Do you have any idea where we stand in regards to resuming the special session? And do you expect it to just focus on abortion from here on out, or do you think there is still the possibility of coming up with a compromise tax plan between yourself, the House, and the Senate? Thank you.
Okay, Stephen, great question. From the standpoint, have I had direct conversation with several of the folks in the legislature? I have. I really don't. I don't see it terribly constructive to talk about, just my personal feelings from the standpoint, other than I truly believe that without any question, if we can get on a pathway to get rid of our personal income tax in West Virginia, I'll say it to my grave. It is absolutely the best choice whatsoever. From the standpoint of other plans, or being willing to negotiate and all that, I'm there. I'm there 1,000%. Always been there. Welcoming negotiation and everything. To be just perfectly honest, there's folks on the Senate side that don't want to do that and everything, and the reason for that probably is they want to expend all the dollars in a direction that I personally believe is very risky, to say the very least, and it benefits, as I've said many times. And everybody can fact check the stuff that I'm telling you. It benefits our very larger corporations, and many of them are out-of-state corporations, over favoring our workers and people in the state of West Virginia. Now, we don't want to be asleep at the switch and just think, well, what really and truly this whole thing's about is just getting rid of your taxes on your automobiles. I would absolutely be in favor of doing just that, plus, my plan. I've said this over and over and over, so that's not the issue at all. The issue, though, is from the standpoint of what we were going to do initially is be able to get money back in the folks' pocket and get money back, coming back to them really, really quickly. And I have no earthly idea how we can turn our back on, especially Republicans, how we can turn our back on a tax cut. I don't get that at all. Now, from the standpoint of where we are, I guess the last conversation that I had at length and everything was with the finance chair. And I wasn't going to mention names, but this conversation was really at length and everything, that Chairman Householder, and he's proposed a plan and just, which is a great compromise with all of us and everything, and it's a great plan, a great compromise, and he's just waiting for, yes, we'll do that, and we'll move forward, but he's not gotten that okay and that answer yet. So good people, that have different opinions and everything, and the only thing I would say is my criteria is really simple. We've come a long ways in West Virginia, a long, long ways. And we don't want now to get ourselves at a risk level just by saying, oh, I know it's going to be growth. I know we're going, well, we don't know that there's not going to be a day when things get pretty tough. But we've absolutely got at risk things like our counties, our EMSs, our fire departments, our police departments, our schools. We've got at risk that. And if we just shove it all up on the table and we have a bump in the road, we better pay really close attention to the fact that we can have bumps in the road. And if we have a bump in the road, all those folks that I just named are going to be in jeopardy, because I'm a believer that we should have local control. And when you take the income stream away from our counties, then everything is waiting on Charleston. Charleston is the big daddy that absolutely controls everything. That's not the way everything should work. And so, all that being said, I'm standing in the wings. I'm absolutely wanting to compromise, and us get this done where we can help our people. But we've got a real stalemate there. And as far as and I don't like referring to it as the abortion issue. In my opinion, it's a life issue. And with all that, though, we've got to have, because this one's super tough, we've got to have reason and logic, and then come out of it to where it works, and it works the best it possibly can. So, yeah, I've said it all along. I want to do the best for you in every possible way. I very confidently say, we have done that, and I'll put my record as far as minding the store up against anybody's. But we just got to get everybody on the right page. I mean, we got 134 people with a whole lot of different opinions and everything. If we don't watch out, who knows what we're going to get done. But we want to keep this state without any question moving what way. Stephen, it's just as simple as this. We want this state to keep moving forward. Can we blow our legs off by getting in our own way? If you daggum right, and you better believe that. So, nevertheless, that's what I'm going to try to do with all in me.
All right, thanks, Stephen. Next to Charles Young with WV News.
Hi, this is Charles Young with WV News. Governor, I wanted to ask you about the next steps after your emergency declaration for the jails and prisons. I know we've got the National Guard headed in there. And, when you made the declaration last week, you pointed to the failure of lawmakers to pass the bill last session that would have enacted the locality pay. What do we do next to find a permanent solution to this? Do you plan on calling a special session to have lawmakers retake up that legislation? How do we get a permanent fix, sir?
Well, Charles, I want you to know I wasn't being super critical of our lawmakers and not following through with the regional pay stuff and everything, but because they, when they come into a regular session, they've got, good gracious, it's literally thousands of issues to work through, which blows my mind in every way. From a standpoint, really and truly, gosh, and I hate to think, that we're going to have another special session about something else and everything, but, literally the regional pay issue, is something that we should probably consider. The downside of it, though, is just this. You do regional pay, it's pretty obvious, but you do regional pay in a certain area and you don't, and you're paying people more there than you are in a county maybe that's not having, you know, that's having all those issues and whatever and like that. And the net is the people that are in the counties that are being paid significantly less and doing the same job, you know, they feel like they're being really slighted. And then before you know it, you got a food fight going on, and then the next thing that happens is you just are going to, you know, maybe be in a situation where you bump everybody up significantly. Now, I'm not opposed to any of that, but it needs real live discussion. And from the standpoint of our legislature, it needs real live discussion from those folks at some point in time, and the sooner the better, because when it really boils right down to it, we've got counties with a 60% vacancy level. We've got to take care of our inmates and take care of the folks in our jail facilities, or we're going to end up with something bad happening there. You know, today, right at this moment, we don't have a choice but the National Guard right today. You know, so, you know, the National Guard will absolutely handle this situation until the regular session, if we want to wait that long. And you know, at that time, you know, that, you know, we could very well send up our own bill in regard to, you know, regional pay and everything. But Charles, while I got you, let's just think about this. You know, let's just think about it how I would think about stuff. We got to take care of our inmates, and we got to take care of our staff folks, and we got an obligation to have corrections. B is, I agree 1000% with maybe the philosophy of the legislature that when somebody really does something really bad, we don't just turn them back out on the streets. Really and truly, we need to put them in jail. I believe C, if we don't have enough jail facilities to be able to handle that, build more jails. Because absolutely just turning people back out on the street, you know, now, do we want to do absolute rehabilitation and everything else and have them go back into being productive citizens without any question? You know, my Jobs and Hope program just does that. There's many, many different things, and you know I'm in favor of that. But absolutely just turning them back out on the street, you know, for the sake of turning them back out of the street is absolutely crazy to do that. So the net of the whole thing is this. We have an obligation to take care. We absolutely don't. We have a philosophy of not turning people back out. With all that being said, if we just turned this over and said, well, independent contractors, we're just going to hire independent contractors to come in, it's going to be gigantically expensive. That's all there is to it. We got to solve it. You know, to me, we got to just solve it. And from that standpoint, it seems that the way that this issue is going to have to be solved is we're going to have to significantly change the wage structure to be able to attract people to be able to solve it. And so that's what I think we need to, where I think we need to move.
All right, thank you, Charles. Next to Mark Curtis with Nexstar Media.
Good morning, Governor and cabinet members and fellow reporters. Governor, I want to go back to the abortion issue for just a moment and get your opinion on something. On Friday, the West Virginia Democratic Party issued a press release calling on the state to have a ballot initiative, a voter referendum, perhaps in November, to let the voters decide the issue of reproductive rights once and for all, as they just did in Kansas. Would you favor something like this, or do you think it is solely the purview and responsibility of the state legislature and the attorney general to straighten out whatever confusion and conflict there is in West Virginia law at this time?
Well, Mark, again, I don't know how to answer you other than just to just tell you exactly what I think. Unfortunately, this place is surrounded with constant grandstanding. Now, I think that's what the Democrats are doing. I think, you know, the sincerity is below the grandstanding. You know, how do we get in front of the media and get a political one-up and everything? This is the responsibility coming down from the Supreme Court to U.S. Supreme Court. This is the responsibility of our legislature and our Attorney General. And absolutely, I've said over and over and over, I don't want to impose anything, any ideas or anything This is their responsibility. Now, if they bring me something that I cannot sign, I won't sign it. But absolutely, I don't think that'll happen. I think our legislature abounds with good people, and they should get through this and bring me something that I will absolutely welcome and sign. And I think that's exactly what will happen, and I think that's our responsibility.
All right, thanks, Mark. Governor, I'll turn it back to you.
Okay, well, just jumping back just real quick, I just want to, again, reflect on what our experts have said. Dr. Marsh tells us about, long COVID. And for anybody that didn't understand and whatever it may be, long COVID is just side effects. Side effects from COVID that last for a significant period of time, sometimes a long, long time. And especially side effects to your major organs or your brain. So with all that being said, what he's basically saying is this. In the Netherlands, they just did another study. And in the Netherlands, they said, I think he said that 1 out of every 8 people that got COVID. Now, in the state of West Virginia, we've had, I think it's 555,000 people recover. 559,000 people have recovered. Now, if 1 out of every 8 people of those folks are having, some level of side effect, that's probably that's somewhere close to 65,000 people, that are having some level, or maybe 70,000, but it's somewhere in that range of total people that could very well have some level of side effect or long COVID. It's a lot of folks, isn't it? It's an awful high percentage, isn't it? With all that being said, you're probably looking at something in the neighborhood of 12 or 13% of the number of people that are getting COVID have some level of side effect later on. Please don't take that chance. Please don't take that chance. I don't know how in the world it could be worth it. The last thing I've got is, General Hoyer, again emphasized that on August the 22nd, we're going to have our tabletop exercise, and that is set for that date. And he also said something that is always important to me, but just over the weekend, 2 or 3 days over the weekend, we had another 94 people in the state of West Virginia that went in and got their first dose, not a booster shot. They got their first dose. Now, all you got to do is ask yourself the same question that I ask myself every single day. How many of those people really and truly we could have saved their life? Is it 1? And if it's 1, what's that life worth? You can't define that, and neither can I. So is it worth coming here? Is it worth being in front of you? Is it worth urging people to get vaccinated and get their booster doses and all that kind of stuff? It surely is to me. And so with all that being said, we're going to continue to try, because every single life we can save is so precious, it's beyond belief. God gave that life, and absolutely we are expected to do every single thing in our power, everything in our power, to try to do all we possibly can to help people save that life. And so with all that being said, that's all I've got today, and God bless each and every one of you, and just keep being just what I know you are, the best of the best of the best. West Virginians that all pulled the rope together, and we've done a whale of a job. Thank you for letting me be a part of you.